Ever get that, like, kind of frantic feeling, begging for your boarding pass,
Uh-huh.
you know, juggling coffee in your carry-on?
Oh, yeah.
Well, imagine just walking up and boom, you're on board. Just a quick face scan.
That's the future, huh?
That's what Air Canada is promising, becoming the first Canadian airline to roll out facial recognition. At Vancouver International, no less.
Interesting.
So we're going deep on this, not just the convenience factor, but, all those questions it brings up. Privacy, security, the whole shebang. What's the future of travel even going to look like?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. What I find really interesting is Air Canada is not just, testing the waters. They're going all in, boarding. That's a big deal. It's a core part of the whole experience, right?
Right.
So this is a sign, I think, of a real shift. We're getting closer and closer to a world where basically our faces are our IDs.
Okay, so break it down for us. How does it actually work? Like, do I just snap a selfie, upload it to the app, and I'm good?
Well, not quite that simple. You have to actually enroll voluntarily, of course. So yeah, you upload a selfie, but also a scan of your passport. Basically, you're creating a digital ID linked to, your face, the biometrics.
Yeah.
And then when you get to the gate, there's a camera, it scans your face, matches it to that digital ID, match, you're on your way.
So you're trading some of your, I guess, biometric data for a smoother experience.
Yeah.
But the question on everyone's mind, I'm sure, is how secure is all this?
Right, that's the big one. Air Canada says they've taken steps to address that. They say all that info, your face scan, everything, it's encrypted, only used for ID within their system.
Uh-huh.
And get this, they say it's deleted after 36 hours.
That's reassuring, I guess.
Mhm.
But any, like, independent checks on that? Have those claims been audited? Also, how does it actually work? Matching your face to a photo, how often does it get it wrong? The techie stuff I'm curious about.
You're asking the right questions. That stuff often gets lost in the hype. Air Canada hasn't said anything publicly about like third-party audits.
Right.
But the technology itself, probably some seriously complex algorithms. Analyzing your features, creating a unique map of your face digitally.
I see.
But even the best systems have limits. Lighting, the angle you're at, your expression, even just aging, it can all throw things off, lead to mistakes.
So it could get someone wrong.
Yeah.
Then what?
That's a scenario that definitely needs to be figured out. False positives, someone gets wrongly ID'd, that's delays, frustration, maybe even security risks. And the opposite, false negatives, where it doesn't recognize the right person, that's a mess too.
So reliability, fairness, that's all up in the air a bit.
Yeah.
Okay, let's shift gears to another biggie, jobs. John Gradick, the aviation expert, he's worried about jobs disappearing because of this. Is that a real concern?
Oh, absolutely. And it goes beyond airlines, this kind of automation, facial recognition leading the way, it could reshape everything. Air Canada hasn't given us numbers, but it's not crazy to think fewer gate agents needed if this takes off.
So it's more than just smile for the camera and you're off. There's a lot more going on here. Tech, ethics, what it means for society as a whole.
Absolutely. And as this becomes more common, we've got to talk about it openly, honestly, all these implications.
Speaking of common, how does what Air Canada's doing compare to other places?
Well, in Canada, they're definitely leading the pack. But around the world, other airlines, airports, they're way ahead. Delta in the U.S., they're using it for bag check, boarding, you name it.
Wow.
And Frankfurt Airport, they've gone all out, facial recognition for the whole journey, check-in to takeoff.
So Canada's playing catch-up then?
Kind of, yeah, compared to some.
Yeah.
But this move by Air Canada, it's a sign they're ready to jump in, could change the whole landscape of air travel here. It really is amazing to see how fast this is all spreading. Like, the whole world's on board with this. Shows you how connected the travel industry is now. This push for everything to be smooth, digital.
Yeah. The world's shrinking in more ways than one, huh? Not just how fast we can travel, but how we, prove who we are, get around. But back to Air Canada. They've made a big deal about privacy, haven't they?
They have, yeah.
Their spokesperson, Peter Fitzpatrick, even said it was, like, top of mind when they were developing this whole thing.
Right, and that's good to hear, for sure. But it makes you wonder, right? Okay, they say they care about privacy, but what does that actually look like? How are they making sure it happens? Do they have, solid data protection?
Yeah, that's the key thing. Saying it is one thing, but actually doing it, proving it. What about, outside checks, audits, that sort of thing?
Exactly. Having someone independent come in, look it all over, that would be huge.
Yeah.
To back up what Air Canada is saying, make sure the system's doing what it should.
Yeah.
And, spot any weak points, suggest ways to make it safer, better at protecting data.
So right now we're basically taking their word for it, that our info's safe.
Pretty much, yeah.
And while we're talking data, it's interesting that Air Canada's system, it's separate from like Nexus government
Oh,
programs.
yeah. That's a crucial point. They've been clear about that. This is just for their system, their ID thing. They're not sharing it with the government, at least not yet.
But you got to wonder, right? Could that happen down the line?
It's a slippery slope for sure. Once this tech is in place, it's hard to say how it might get used connected to other things.
Yeah. So for our listeners who might be getting a little, I don't know, creeped out by all this, it is optional, right? You don't have to do the face scan thing.
Oh, absolutely. You can still choose the old way, boarding pass and all that. Choice is super important here. People should know exactly how this works, the good, the bad, and that they have a say.
Right, right. Okay, I want to go back to something we mentioned before.
Sure.
John Gradick and his worries about jobs. It's not just gate agents, is it? This could impact a whole bunch of jobs, anything that could be automated.
You're hitting the nail on the head. This is bigger than just airlines. It's about what does work even look like in the future? With all this automation happening, facial recognition, AI, robots, it's all changing so fast. Could be totally different jobs in a few years.
It's like we're at a crossroads. We could get all this efficiency, convenience, but what are we giving up? Jobs, privacy, even just connecting with other humans face to face if everything's automated.
Those are the big questions, aren't they? And no easy answers. We need
Oh,
to think about this carefully, talk about it, really wrestle with these, ethical dilemmas.
so we got to figure out how to use these technologies, but also protect what's important to us. But how do we even start doing that?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
Mm-hmm.
No quick fix. We need to keep talking, everyone involved, working together to find solutions that work for people, for society.
It's a big challenge, but we can't just ignore it.
Definitely not. I think it starts with making people aware, encouraging them to think critically, and feeling like we're all in this together.
Like the more we know, the better choices we can make.
Exactly. And that's the whole point of this deep dive, right? Not just giving information, but giving our listeners the power to join these conversations, to shape the future they want.
Well said. On that note, I think I'll hand it back to you for the final word, as always. What should our listeners take away from all this?
As we, navigate this crazy world of tech that's getting more complex all the time, I think the most important thing is to stay involved, stay informed, and question everything. Ask yourself, what are the good things, the bad things about these technologies? How can we make sure they're used the right way? And in the end, what kind of future do we actually want?
Yeah, it's like we're pioneers almost,
Yeah.
heading into uncharted territory, and we get to choose which way to go.
That's a good way to look at it. It reminds us that this isn't just about the tech itself, it's about us, our values, what kind of world we want to build.
So as we wrap this up, what are some key questions our listeners should be thinking about as they come across facial recognition, whether it's traveling or just everyday life?
Well, I think it starts with thinking about the trade-offs. Like, how much convenience is worth giving up some of our personal data? Are there times when maybe it's okay more than others? And what are the safeguards, the things we need to put in place to make sure it's used responsibly, ethically?
Yeah, those are the big questions. No easy answers there.
Yep.
So it can take a lot of discussion, thinking it through.
Definitely. And we have to remember, this isn't just some theoretical thing. This tech is out there being used, and it's affecting real people.
So what can people do, our listeners, I mean, to make their voices heard, to be part of this conversation?
Well, first off, stay informed, read up on it, listen to, podcasts like this one, talk about it with people. The more you know, the better decisions you can make.
And don't be afraid to ask questions. Push back a little. Demand some transparency.
Exactly. We have a right to know, how is our data being used? What's being done to protect our privacy?
This has been a really fascinating deep dive. And I think it's safe to say facial recognition, this is going to be a big topic for a while.
I think so too. And as it keeps changing, becoming more, woven into our lives, we've got to stay aware, informed, involved in shaping where it goes.
Thanks for joining us on this journey. We hope you'll keep exploring these big issues with us in future episodes.
And until next time, keep asking those questions, keep the conversation going.